Okay, self-introduction, guys. Let's go around. Jose Rodriguez, Town of Morville.
Dave Atler, PEG.
Jim DeGroot, PEG RTA.
Catherine Skinner, Pima County. Annalie Levis, Pima County.
Keith Brand, Town Marana.
Paul Casertano with PEG.
Tony Kelly with PAG.
Doug Mosey with ADOT. Jamie Brown with PEG.
Who do we have in?
Online, we have Beth Abramovitz. Is Beth available? Here, Beth.
I'm here.
There we go.
Brownowitz, Town of Sarita.
Okay. Patricia Pablo with Tohono O'odham.
Yes, I'm here. Good morning, everybody.
Robin Rain with the City of Tucson.
Yes, Robin Rain, City of Tucson. I'm here.
I'm not sure if Diana's with you as well.
She's not with me here. I was just checking because I thought she was planning to attend. I thought she was also planning to attend virtually, but I'm not certain.
Okay, thank you. Do we have anybody else online? I don't have anyone else that I know of.
Good morning, this is Mark Hoffman with ADOT Planning.
Oh, Mark.
Good morning, Mark Novak with University of Arizona.
Okay, welcome. Moving on to item number 2, in-kind reporting.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That'll be me.
Well,
Regional planning efforts are enhanced by recording time donated by attendees, volunteers, and participants. PAG collects data on the time dedicated to meetings and activities to apply for use as matching funds for grants and federal dollars. If you're paid with federal dollars, please let us know now.
Paul, you know, this is Mark Hoffman. I'm paid with federal funds.
Thank you, Mark. And just to let you know, you're a little faint. If you can get a little closer or up your volume, that might be helpful.
All right.
Time spent in preparation for this meeting will be estimated by PAG staff who are knowledgeable of the agenda and meeting materials. At the conclusion of this meeting, the session report will automatically calculate your time spent in this meeting. Time spent working on PAG RTA initiatives, programs, and special projects may also be eligible for consideration for matching funds. That's all I have.
thank you. Moving on to item number 3, approval of the May 11th, 2021 meeting.
Move to approve.
Motion to approve.
No one approved sides for lack of. So.
Right. And we have a motion, we have a second. Okay, any discussions, questions? Okay, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Carries. Thank you. Moving on to item number 4, overview of the FY 2022, FY 2023 PAG's overall work program.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Appreciate the opportunity to present on this item. I'm going to test the controls here. So Crystal, would you like me to request control or should I just use it? Thank you. Just by way of an overview, the overall work program is a statement of work or scope of work known internally as the overall work program. And the federal regulations, it's called Unified Planning Work Program, or UPWP, we call it the overall work program. And it's required as the basis of the contract we have with the Arizona Department of Transportation. It's important to note that it's built on previously adopted overall work programs, including one that was adopted in 2019. It was presented to the Regional Council on April 22nd, 2021. The OWP budget was included in the TIP and was approved by many components of the OWP budget were included in the TIP, which was approved by the Regional Council on May 27th. The OWP was endorsed by the Regional Council Executive Committee on June 2nd. Okay, got this one here. In terms of the organization of the document, it must be developed consistent with federal regulations for federally designated metropolitan planning organizations like PAG. So the background and overview includes sections on PAG's various roles and responsibilities, the MPO and TMA designation, as well as federal planning factors and emphasis areas. The chapters of the FY22 and 23 OWP include 18 different work elements within these different chapters, including transportation activities, integrated planning and smart region, other programs and services, RTA support, pass-through partnerships, administration, and appendices. And the appendices include highlights and accomplishments, includes various budget tables, it includes a structural, a functional organizational chart, and also includes a table that shows the linkages between our work elements and the federal planning factors and emphasis areas. So for each work element, the sections include the purpose, the funding sources, the projected outcomes, and estimated completion dates, as well as goals and strategies. Of the 128 projected outcomes identified in the updated OWP, 80% are substantially or substantively similar as continuation of the adopted 2020 and 2021 OWP efforts. 7% are added as new outcomes, and 13% are completed or removed when comparing the two OWPs. So I mentioned the budget tables and appendices. There are 6 for each fiscal year. So table 1 shows the funds available with the federal sources at the top, the state sources in the middle, and the local funding sources at the bottom. Table 2 shows the local share contributions by our member agencies. There is no change from the previous OWP. Table 3 is an extension of Table 1. Shows the total revenue by program area, but breaks it down by the different work elements. So you can see the federal sources on the left of the table, state towards the middle, and local on the right, with the work elements in the rows. Table 4 shows total expenditures by program area and category, again broken down by the work elements, with categories such as personnel, employee-related expenses, project, office, PPE, and miscellaneous, as well as in-kind. Table 5 shows the staff allocation by program area. You can see that for 2022, we have budgeted 55.5 employees, or FTEs. The final table, Table 6, shows the capital equipment and consultants, including pass-through funding for those items with estimated costs of $5,000 or greater. And it's multiple pages, so you can see the second page here. And we also have the fiscal year 23 tables available if we want to look at each of those. So I want to thank the management committee members who submitted comments on the OWP. So we had some really good discussion and feedback. I do want to mention that we, based on those comments, we developed a document that has all the comments plus responses, and that's in your packet. Also, by the way, we did meet with our federal and state funding partners in April because this is a federally required document, and as we customarily do, we had a meeting with them to make sure that our OWP was going to be in compliance, and so that meeting occurred as well. So one of the comments that came up was the relationship between the TIP and the OWP. And so wanted to indicate that the TIP programs some, but not all funding for PAG operations. So some funding is a direct allocation, such as metropolitan planning or PL funds. But if you look at the table towards the top right, it shows the TIP IDs and the amounts that were approved on May 27th and the total. And then if you look at Table 1 in the OWP and use some, you can see on the far left FHWA STBG, FHWA STBG 0. If you sum those, they are equal. So that those two funding sources must match, and they do. Yes, please.
Good morning. Recognize. Go ahead.
I know, exactly. So are those, just very kind of, are those totals for those 5 years, or those total for each year? Does that make sense? The 985,000 for TIP ID 635, is that the total for 5 years? Or the total each of those years?
Now, for a comparison, we're just showing one fiscal year. So this would show fiscal year 22 in the tip. That makes sense. So 635.00985 for fiscal year 22. And then if you look at the table below for the OWP, it's just showing fiscal year 22. So that's why it's a 1-to-1 match. So we did not sum all 5 years. Does that help answer your question? Okay. Yeah. Other comments, questions we received were with regard to carry forward. So carry forward allows PAG to accrue funds over multiple years to be used for large planning studies or data acquisition that are periodic or one-time investments and not annual. So past examples include the high capacity transit plan, the regional long range transit plan, the regional freight plan, and activity-based model technical support. The fiscal year 22 and 23 OWP includes funding for new transit planning activities. So that includes regional transit fleet study and a transit comprehensive operational analysis. As I mentioned at the very beginning, the OWP is a basis for an agreement we have with ADOT. And it's important to note that ADOT has the primary responsibility for administering FHWA and FTA funds allocated to the MPO and ensuring that such funds are expended for eligible cost purposes and activities. And so that's why it's important that whatever we do as an organization, it must be in the OWP, it must be in this agreement, otherwise we cannot do it. We cannot charge our approved funding sources to those extraneous activities. And then in terms of the priorities for the next 2 fiscal years, the RTA and RTA Next are at the very top. Of course, we're in the final years of the current RTA plan. And so it's important that our planning efforts, including our next long range transportation plan and our next TIP, all focus on meeting the commitments to the voters in the RTA plan. And of course, working regionally to develop another RTA plan is also a high priority. The development, as I mentioned, of the next long range regional mobility and accessibility plan is important. It's a multi-year effort. So even though we're looking at 2024 for adoption of that plan, we will be working on that in the next 2 fiscal years. Then, as always, fulfilling any obligations due to contracts or federal interstate mandates are priorities in our OWP, and then data and technical tools to support all of these efforts are the top priorities. With that, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, happy to take any additional questions. Thank you.
Any questions, comments? Yes. Ms. Alders.
Well, Ms. Orville, I did not see, is there a requirement for reporting or how often we report on the status of the OWP process? So is there a requirement to report how the programs are working? Is there a report done yearly, every 6 months? Do we know?
Question, Ms. Olivares, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My understanding, and I opened up to others to help address this, but we, through our finance division, we do provide regular reports to ADOT. I believe those are either on a quarterly or monthly basis. We also provide updates to our member agencies if we need them. If Mr. Hoffman is on the line and has a different understanding, or Doug, that's perspective, but that's my understanding is that we do regularly provide written reports on our accomplishments.
Yes, I don't know if you can hear, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Mark.
Okay. Yes, as Jamie said, PEG requests does a reimbursement request on a monthly basis, and with that reimbursement request, there's a required progress report for work completed during that invoice period for the month. So that is submitted on a regular basis.
Are those available online to review in case we don't get them? or if I wanted to see them, I guess.
Here's the question. Who do they go to the county and the city? Who in the county?
I mean, and they're also included in the regional council packets. They're narrative, they're not crosswalk to specific work program elements without really digging in. It's pretty high level and there's no financial reporting associated with it. So I'm not sure what kind of update. It's a bullet point of things like we met with the county to discuss the safety explorer. We met with Laurel Valley to discuss RTA funding. So it's not necessarily, in my mind, a full crosswalk to the goals and strategies that are expressed in the OWP. But they are in the regional council packet.
But if it's a monthly pay request, there should be some information.
Maybe to ADOT,
Oh,
not to the county.
Well, I think it does go
Financial
to,
audits too.
no, it does go to, I just don't know which department. We can find that out though. It may be the finance department may be the administrator, but we can find that out.
Okay.
If I may, I'm having a hard time computer-wise figuring out how to raise my hand, Mr. Chair, if I may ask a question.
We see you, Robin.
We see you.
So I wanted to ask about whether or not we could, instead of just having it part of the package informationally at the TPC, maybe once a year or twice a year, have someone staff-wise walk through all the things that you guys are doing with OWP and where you stand with that, and have that be sort of a standing item at one of our meetings. It's just a suggestion for future, so that when we're looking at these monthly or quarterly reports, we have some basis of understanding that you guys have walked us through.
And this is Diana Alacon, also with the City of Tucson. I think I was going to pretty much go in the same place that Robin went and what the county was discussing. We would like to maybe perhaps have a further conversation about how it is presented and prepared, and how often we actually have the opportunity to review and have the conversation with staff. So perhaps maybe, Mr. Chair, that could be a topic of conversation for a future TPC committee meeting, to just sort of talk through what it is we would like and the expectation, and then understanding what is available, allowable, understanding everybody has resources challenges, but also just having a little bit more in-depth information provided to us. So if we could, I would like to make a recommendation that we just have a future item on our committee agenda to discuss maybe perhaps how we can have the information provided to us that is reasonable based on resources at the PAG staff level, and is how often. Thank you.
Question, just informational item.
Well, we really, yeah, we don't have an item on here to
No,
talk
no.
about future
Correct.
agenda items also.
Any other questions?
This is Patricia. Can you hear me?
Anybody out there?
Hi, Patricia. We're having a hard time hearing you, but go ahead.
Okay.
There you
Okay.
are.
There you go.
I'm trying to turn my video on too, but it's on.
We got you now.
I agree with Robin and I believe Diane. I wanted to see if we could have that more explained to us too, and to see where the tribes fit in, because I'm not really sure how we would fit into this overall thing, but I just wanted a better understanding of it. So I agree with the two ladies before me.
Thank you.
Just that. Thank you.
Anybody else out there? I can't see. Can you see?
Any hands being
Any
raised?
hands out there from your side?
No.
Right. This is an informational item. All the questions, I think we can move on to item number 5. Okay, moving on to item 5. Discussion of FY22 Transportation Plan Committee meeting schedule. Mr. Adler.
Thank you. Good morning. Yes, one thing that we did following receipt of comments that were initiated at the management committee was to meet with the county and city staff. And something that, and we've been hearing this for a while now too, and we're hearing it this morning as well, to have more conversation, to have more meetings. So this is, again, this is just a discussion item for today. It's not an action item, but it's to help set up for the first TPC meeting of the next meeting season, which would be on August 18th. So that's the third Wednesday of the month. And at that time, we will bring before you a conversation, opportunity, and action item to discuss the year's calendar through next May. And then we're talking about monthly, that's what we've been asked for, monthly meetings. So, everybody on the TPC will have a chance to weigh in and talk about what that calendar may look like. So I'm going to pass this off to Anna if she doesn't mind.
We did make the request, but I would recommend that we meet monthly, that we have it on our calendar to meet monthly. And sometimes I think it's, maybe they were canceled because there was lack of action items, but we can have information on it just like today. I think it's very helpful as we start working on anything that we're going to approve for May, March. Those meetings before could be informational for us to learn where we are, the status updates, so that we have more time to prepare. So that would be my recommendation. And I also made a little note if on our agenda, we put future agenda items. I can make sure that we can, discuss future agenda items. I see Diana has her hand up.
Anna,
I had to raise my hand. I'm really sorry. I'm just like, I'm like raising it myself.
speak up.
I think I'm so efficient technology-wise, and then I find out I'm totally not. I apologize for that. Thank you, Anna. I actually agree with Anna. I love the idea of putting it on the calendar, and then if there's no action, it just gets canceled. Is this something we need to make a motion to do?
No, that we'll be talking about that next month, or I'm sorry, in August.
Okay, so we are planning a meeting in August for TPC.
Yes. I'm nodding to you. I don't know if you can see me.
No. Okay, good. No, I can't see.
Like you raising your hand on the camera.
Thank you, Dave. Can I ask one other question real quick? So I'm really glad to hear we're doing this in August, and then we can set it up then. But I have a question about how we go about putting items on the agenda for discussion.
Future agenda items?
Or are you asking do you want to put something on the agenda for the August 18th meeting?
Yeah. Yes, ma'am. Sorry. Yeah.
Let's just have a conversation internally about that because historically it's been whatever action items we had to bring. So if we're going to be adding discussion items, then that's or informational items, right?
Or with jurisdiction that wants to bring something to or approach at the next meeting, how does that? What are the process?
Well, this was actually something that we had discussed, Dave, when we had a chance to visit with y'all earlier in the week to go over the OWP. And so I just wanted to raise it because I do think it's a discussion that needs to be had, and that's on the pavement management practice. So I don't know how, but if we have some of those items that really needs to be a regional conversation, there has to be a way for each one of the jurisdiction to have an opportunity to throw that on the TPC for a conversation, especially if it's a regional conversation.
Right.
So that's why I just raised, I don't know what the process is, and I wanted a little bit of clarification, but if there is an opportunity for us to put on the agenda for discussion, I can have staff come and do a small presentation of what we are doing now for PAG on pavement management. And then that way the TPC can have a conversation, the jurisdiction can have a conversation with staff about what may be some alternative choices we can have with the pavement management practice, as well as, or maybe the way it can look for the future. So I didn't know quite how to do that, and that's why I was asking.
Thank you.
So,
Yes.
So certainly, when I was sharing your chair, the chair cleared the agenda. So certainly the chair should have the ability to put something on the agenda.
And we just need to clarify with it.
Yeah. And I think that was in the discussion we had with the city on, and I think Farhad mentioned this at the county meeting as well last week, that's worked out with the chair.
So if a jurisdiction wants to put something on the agenda, we need to make the request to the chair.
I think certainly making a request in open forum like this, and then the chair who kind of controls the meeting would say, I'd like to see that. I think that would put it on there.
Perfect. So, Mr. Chair, if you would please consider us being able to do a quick presentation on what City of Tucson has been providing PAG as far as pavement management, and have a potential for a conversation of what the program can look like in the future.
Well, since we can't really talk about future agenda items, but I can say that we do have a list for August.
We'll put that in. I definitely want to see that one.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's on the 18th, Diana.
So, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so this item is on the agenda for the 18th?
We don't have an agenda yet for the 18th.
We're getting it.
Okay, so, but I just made a request to the chair for consideration of this item to be on the August 18th agenda.
I didn't look into it, getting that.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, can I ask a clarifying question? Is there a timeline, 2 weeks before the meeting, 3 weeks before the meeting, that we can email you and PAG staff requesting an agenda item? Because we might not know today, and it's not on our agenda, but what's the time frame for setting that up?
What's the process? Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we have a process that we have internally for asking for agenda items internally. So we can extend that out. If, like I said, I have to be really careful about how far we go along with future agenda items. But we do that in order to try to go through an internal quality control process and have the packets out that week prior to the meeting. So I think we start like 4 weeks out to start pulling everything together, and we try to allow time if there's, and I'll use Tabby as an example. In the city, just they were the only ones that applied this year, but we try to give time for response if there's any questions that we have for the jurisdiction that may be asked questions or make an application or discussion or something. So that's built in there as well. So we do have that. We can just
get that and then maybe disseminate to the rest of the jurisdictions. We all know what the rules are.
Yeah, definitely.
So that everybody.
That would be awesome. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Your staff has appropriate time for your presentation.
Yes.
Last minute.
Yes.
They're also gonna make it.
Yeah.
We might get 50 requests, and like, we'll be here all day, guys. We got other jobs to do.
Or you can say, we're gonna tackle this in this meeting.
Sure. Yeah.
So, and I believe that in the previous year, Zonia has, when she's shared the meeting calendar for that year, that I think materials submittal date was included, things like that. So we can, I know we have one internal that's color coded for when things are due. So.
This is a little bit of background because I've been doing this for a while. The reason why we cut back on the meetings because we're having way too many meetings. And people are going to say, this is not the only thing I do. I have other things.
Well,
to cut back on the meetings because
regional council wanted fewer meetings. So when you start looking at taking something through the process, you're spinning our wheels.
We cut way too much because some people want more meetings. Like, well, I remember a few years back, we have way too many meetings, guys.
But this, I think it goes to what I'm neutral on the meeting frequency. All right. But what we're hearing too is doesn't have to be if it's informational item, if it's a discussion item or something like that. If it's a presentation from a jurisdiction that doesn't go to the regional council, then it's not tied to that schedule. But this is we'll have an expanded conversation in August where you can have an action item and decide. So the idea of having this on the agenda now was more to give everybody some time to think about what their calendar may look like. So you're not asked in August to give us the dates now. But Anna had a line that we liked at the meeting last week, which was
it's easier to cancel.
Thank you. It's much easier to cancel a meeting than schedule one.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, we just put it in our calendar.
Yes.
Right. And I agree 100% with that. I think it would be great, just set a date and this is when it is. And if we don't need it, we just cancel it. But it's a set date in the calendar.
And historically, it's been the third Wednesday of the month and 9 a.m. So that's
works for me. I'll hold August for that day.
18th, 9 o'clock.
It's held. You own it, Dave. You
All
own
right.
that time now.
All right.
And again, even if it's just for information, it sounds like I'm hearing from the jurisdictions, they want more information.
I mean, but to your point, people are very busy and you want to go to a lot of meetings. By the same breath, you don't want to read this 200 pages and vote on them more than a week's time. That also is not, that could just into our court schedule, right? You can't decide to read 200 pages and make a decision.
Well, be careful what you wish for.
And get it in pieces.
Oh, you're right. If you get information throughout the year, then by the time it comes to voting,
Yeah.
well, you don't have to vote on it, but you concur. It works.
Jamie has
sorry.
hand up.
I'm neutral on this. I just want to ask if, is the format something that's part of this conversation? Because right now we're having a hybrid meeting. Does that weigh into the conversation about meeting
I don't have enough room.
frequency?
It's just a frequency right now at this point in time.
Yeah. For the
So
foreseeable
like if you-
future,
Like
we'll,
in the next year, maybe possible, you just mark every month of it. So turn day in.
yeah, it just
If there's nothing else, just cancel and send out.
Yeah.
You can send out a new message.
for the foreseeable future, they'll be offered hybrid.
That'd be great, 'cause I think Jamie's point is, if some of the outlying jurisdictions don't have time, because it's not just being the same, you just have to travel here, so that makes sense, but if you get it virtually, the rest downtown.
And the weather's lovely for walking.
Yeah.
It's a great walk.
It's a nice walk.
Wait,
For
you know.
20 more minutes.
You save some time by not having to drive.
All right, guys, any further discussions? Anybody out there? Further questions? Okay, you're not.
Oh, wait, sorry, I'm not quick enough on the dial. Mr. Chair, just one real one more real question about selection of new chair and co-chair for the TPC. I'm not sure of the process of that. Could I get a little clarification on when that would be happening or how that happens?
That normally happens in the beginning of the tip cycle.
Calendar year, right?
Calendar year.
Yeah, again, we're going off the agenda, so we can't get into that, but we do have a list of items we're talking about for August.
So that's one of the items on the August agenda? Is that what you're saying, Dave?
We don't have an agenda for August yet.
Thank you.
All right, any further questions?
We do our best to settle.
Questions? All right, moving on to item number 6, adjournment. Get a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion.
A motion, thank you.
Second.
All right, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. You're officially adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you all. You're all coming in and tuning in on.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Until that end
We have to
discussion
do it to
with
be a chair.
the chair might not be
Yeah.
full
So your
meeting
mayor
council.
comes up.